Let's move on now, because Georgian police have used water cannon and tear gas on demonstrators who have turned out in their thousands near the Parliament building in Tbilisi for a second night running. Police say 107 people have been arrested. Georgia's pro-Western President Salome Zurabishvili, at loggerheads with the ruling party, said in a televised address that the resistance movement had begun and she stood by it. The protest was sparked by the government's decision to put off accession talks with the European Union in 2028. Well, Natia Seskuria is the founder of the Regional Institute for Security Studies, a Tbilisi-based think tank. She previously worked for Georgia's National Security Council. She explained what this means for the country's membership bid.
Well, I think it is clear that for the first time since Georgia declared its aspirations to join the European Union, we see such a dramatic, such a swift shift in Georgia's foreign policy aspirations. And despite the fact that the Prime Minister and the government still mentions that there will be membership by 2030, it's unimaginable that we will get there unless we will see a dramatic policy shift. Because what our current standing is that Georgia's relations with the EU have never been this bad. And we already saw that the EU announced that unless there is an investigation over the allegations of election rigging and a shift in government's policies, Georgia should not expect any progress when it comes to the EU membership aspirations.
Well, let's speak to our correspondent Reyhan Dimitri, who is in Georgia for us. So, second night of protests, as we have been saying. Are we expecting more to come in the coming days?
It's highly likely, because that is the trend in Georgia. When police uses force, people come in larger numbers. And we've seen a larger protest last night than the previous night. It turned violent when police started using water cannons, and protesters are saying that there are chemicals that perhaps are somehow mixed with the water. And I was at the protest rally. It was very difficult to breathe. They used water cannons, tear gas, and this crackdown turned really brutal in the early hours of this morning, because the protest went on till 6 a.m. And now there's more and more evidence emerging of police brutality, specifically in targeting individual protesters and beating and kicking them, and in some instances kicking them unconscious. More than 100 people were arrested, and one lawyer told the local media that there are no places in detention facilities in the capital, Tbilisi. Now, there have also been protests in other cities of Georgia, namely in the second largest city, Black Sea coastal town of Batumi, and some arrests were made there as well. So Georgians are really, really angry at their government for making this U-turn on Europe. They believe that the government is trying to appease Russia by turning its back on Europe. The Prime Minister announced on Thursday that the current accession talks with the European Union will be put on hold until 2028. And the government says that their argument for this is what they described as blackmail from the European Union, and also a cascade of insults, as the Prime Minister said, that is coming from the European politicians and European bureaucrats. So that is their reasoning why they decided to put this process on hold. But the country's opposition and the pro-Western presidents, they describe what's happening now in Georgia as a constitutional coup, because it's written in the country's constitution. European integration is written in the country's constitution.
OK, Reyhan, for now, thank you very much indeed. Well, for more on this, let's speak to Givi Tashvili, who is a research associate at the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab. Thanks very much for your time here on BBC News. Let's just pick up on some of what Reyhan was talking about there. Do you think the actions of the government represent what most Georgians want?
Well, definitely no, because 97% of Georgians are in favor of countries' integration into the European Union. So the decision the Georgian government made runs against the will of the majority. And it was also mentioned that they openly and blatantly violated Georgia's constitution, because Article 78 says that authorities should take all means in order to advance countries into integration into the European Union. So this is against the constitution, and this is against the will of Georgian people.
You study online disinformation and foreign interference strategies. What has the talk been that you've seen, and the kind of direction that those that online media sites might be pushing people towards?
Well, what I can definitely say is that currently this movement is completely the grassroots movement, and this is a spontaneous protest, not mobilized or organized by anyone. So, of course, pro-government actors in social media are trying to discredit protests, and especially civic activists and pro-democracy activists are the primary targets of online assets run by Georgian government, as well as they are targeted by Georgian police. And definitely this mood of protest is unprecedented in Georgia right now, which is also possible to see in online media. And simply there is a narrative warfare going on. Both sides try to manipulate public opinion, and probably one objective is that they want to exhaust Georgians, and then pro-government actors are trying to make Georgians believe that by going to the streets and protesting will not bring any positive results for them.
Just briefly, if you can, how do you think protesters perceive the relationship between joining the EU and the future of democracy in the country?
Well, I'm pretty sure that everyone who is protesting now in the streets of Tbilisi and other cities know that if they stop protesting and if they go home, tomorrow Georgia will become a country like Russia, which will be fully dependent on Russia, and this will create a significant problems for Georgian statehood. But the dynamic also here is that engagement from the West revives protests in Georgia. So when people see that the West supports them, they are more active. But at the same time, when the West sees that people are protesting and they are fighting for their European future, they also increase their engagement. So what Georgians now need, and people who are protesting, they really need, let's say, more support from the European Union and from the West, which may be reflected in imposing sanctions on everyone who is undermining Georgia's pro-European future and Georgia's statehood.
Okay, Givi Gigitashvili, thank you very much for your time here on BBC News.